I do believe we are live. Fantastic. Hey, welcome to another Eurorack Patch Lab. It's Sunday morning, 10 a.m. We're going to be doing a super casual patching session today. We're going to check out what I've got in the system right now. And in a few minutes, we're going to attempt to pull all of these cables and patch something from scratch today. The first thing I'm going to do is try to find this stream on my channel so that I can so that I can chat rather if anyone tunes in. Let's go ahead and check out what I've got in the system right now as I try to find this stream on my channel. It's a Techno patch in the system right now. All right. Hey, Blinking Frog, good to see you. How's the audio? Everything coming through okay? Can you hear my voice even though the music is really loud? What's happening, Sean? Hey, Jeremy. Audio sounds good. Fantastic. This is a Techno patch that I put together yesterday that I'm pretty stoked on. Tripping over my headphones already. Hey, what's happening, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, everyone, for joining me this morning. Hey, Crypto Techie, thanks for joining up. Hey, Lee. All right, thanks for joining up, everyone. How's everyone liking this Techno patch? It's a little creative, yeah? It's got that kind of flow that makes you want to get up and go. all. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Greg. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. One of the neat things about this particular patch that I've put together is that I can turn all of the tracks off except for that crash. I've got the DivKid mute module here. I've got 2 of these, and basically they're 4 on and off switches, and I've routed all of my audio tracks except for that crash symbol through these 8 on and off switches so that I can really ebb and flow and turn the tracks on and off in real time. Let's check out what this groove is actually based on. We've got a really robust, I'm going to go ahead and pull this crash symbol so it doesn't keep crashing on us every 8 bars. But we're starting off with a really fat, punchy kick drum today. This is from a sample. This is a sample from my Rank Stank Kicks sample pack. A whole bunch of dirty, fat kick drums. It's loaded into the Tip Top Audio 1 sampler. Over this, we've got, let's see, little percussion sound on the offbeat. The percussion sound is really dry, so it allows the things in the mix with reverb to have their own space and doesn't compete with them so much. Let's see what else we've got. We've got an open hat type of a sound. This is actually a noise algorithm from the Blue Lantern modules version of the Mutable Instruments Braids module. So we've got just sort of a white noise here. Can you guys hear that okay? Hey, Ocean Space, thanks for tuning in. All right. Oh, the one below the mixer, this is a Virus Darkstar. I brought this in this week at the idea from last week from Redneck Samurai, which was I get out of tune quite often in the system, and sometimes we struggle in these streams to kind of get back in key and back to tune. At this point, I now have this synthesizer here plugged into the system, so we can reference like a C when I need to reference a C in the stream today, if that comes to play. Thanks, Redneck Samurai, for that tip. All right, so we've got a kick drum, and we've got this percussion sound. We've got kind of a noise algorithm doing the open hat duties here. Over this, we can add a ride cymbal. You guys know I love that high frequency content from the 909 ride. So we've got kind of a drum groove happening. Over that, we've got a bass that I accidentally just knocked out of tune a few moments ago. So let's see if we can actually take a moment and tune this bass, shall we? Turn that right off real quick, and let's see here. Sorry about the hum in the background. That will go away in just one moment when I press play again. But until then, let's just see if I can't get this oscillator back in tune for us. It's just ever so slightly out of tune because I accidentally bumped it when I was trying to do some cool stuff a moment ago. There we go. Now we've got it back in tune with the rest of our groove here. So we've got this bass sound. The bass sound is coming out of the Mutable Instruments Platts module. I'm finding this particular algorithm, it's the FM algorithm, to really be a kind of a go-to for bass sounds. And I think I'm going to probably be using the Platts module in this FM algorithm for quite a few bass sounds in the future. I'm really liking it for that. I also really like the chords mode on Platts. But the really neat thing about the FM mode is that you can mess with the timbre of the bass sound, and you can do those accents, and it's just super easy because the knob by default, the timbre knob, is all the way down. So if I scroll it up just a little bit, then I just slam it back down, and this is something that I can do in real time during the patch at any time. Just maybe get rid of the high frequency melodic lead so that the bass is kind of jumping out, and then I can play with this timbre. So for instance, if this patch was a live performance, that could certainly be a feature of the performance, like the bass solo section, for instance. And I really like the way that algorithm sounds when you mess with this timbre knob. Gives that sharp kind of bite. I've got it, the bass sound itself, running through a very gentle reverb as well. So when I bring that frequency content up using the FM modulation here, it sort of sends that high frequency content of the sound into the reverb. And when I jam that knob back down again, you get that really subtle sort of reverb trail of the high frequency This is really subtle, but these subtle things add up. Listen, if you can, to what it does to that high frequency content in the gentle amount of reverb on this sound. You hear how it sort of trails out over the rest of the bass line after I push the knob back down? Get that little bit of a trail, and that's because I'm sending it to a really gentle reverb. Typically, you don't want to drown your bass or your kicks and reverb because you're going to get your low end very muddy. But I find that used subtly like this, absolutely fantastic. I think the same would be true if we sent this to a delay, and the delay would be ringing out. All right, let's see what else we've got in this patch, shall we? We've got a percussion sound that I can turn on and off. Another percussion sound, just to help sort of the ebb and flow and get the groove and the different sections. We've introduced kind of different offbeat rhythm with this one. Got a really big clap sound that I've drowned in reverb. This is what I was talking about a moment ago when I was explaining that the first percussion sound is relatively dry, giving some of the other sounds that have quite a bit of reverb their own space to breathe within the mix, like this clap here. Hey Pablo, thanks for joining in. I do hope to get some more videos on my rack out at some point. There's just never enough hours in the day to do all of the things that I would really like to do. I've been super busy putting out content this week as well, but I definitely need to get back into the MyRack app. They've done some updates there, and I really want to check out what that's all about as well. Maybe see if I can get it synced up to the real-world modular system and stuff. What else have we got here? Bring some of these tracks off so we can hear what that's bringing in. Oh, that's just an extra one with nothing assigned to it. Okay. And then we have the melodic lead sound. Let's see here. The melodic lead sound is just another sample. It's a one-shot sample that I've loaded into the Tip Top Audio 1 samplers. And I'm running that through the WMD Devices carbon filter so that I can mess with the timbre of this sound. So I can sort of build it up and then bring it back down again. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. Then we'll bring it back down now. And I sort of can create like a repeating loop that way. Or we can sort of do the same tweaky type effects that I was doing over here with the Platts module and the timbre, tweaking it fast and in rhythm with the groove. Now I have 4 different melodic patterns set up with this lead sound. I'm using the Noise Engineering Mimetic Digitalis, which is a random CV sequencer, and I'm taking some random CV signals from the Mimetic, and I'm running them into an attenuator so that I can sculpt the range of these CV signals. I'm taking an output from the attenuator, we're running that into a quantizer so that I can lock the voltages to a scale so we get a more melodic content. And I can switch back and forth between the melodic content of this lead with 3 other different versions of the lead. 2, 3, and you hear how the lead melody just changed a little bit? So we keep the patch moving. I'll do it again. 2, 1, 2, 3, change it. One, two, 3, here we go. So I have these I'm going to go ahead and plug our crash cymbal back in so that I can find the downbeat. So I have these very interesting, different variations on what that lead is doing so that we can keep the interest in the patch going and it's not just the same ARP over and over. And I could go back and forth with those while turning the other tracks on and off in real time. 2, 3, here we go. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Let's change it. So I find that combining the change in melodic content at the same time as turning a track on and off really helps create these sections and give you that ebb and flow in the patch. I'm using, let's see here, I'm using a clock divider from Mazatron, and I'm taking a really slowed down clock signal. I'm taking a divided by 128 clock signal, and I'm using that to trigger a crash cymbal every 8 bars. So it sort of gives me a feeling of a downbeat to the groove that I can lock onto and then turn tracks on and off with that downbeat as the listener kind of knows what to expect in the rhythm. So I'll wait for the crash cymbal. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, and 8. Here comes the crash. So it's subtle and it's in the background, but it helps me really lock into the groove. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and let's change it up on 8. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Here we go. And let's bring the ride. Let's bring everything. Come on. You are absolutely correct in that this is definitely applicable to the modules in my rack. In fact, quite a few of the real world modules that I've got here, we've got virtual equivalents to in my rack, especially the mutable instruments modules, which I highly suggest checking out. I think what we're going to do is it's about 10:20, so we've been going for about 20 minutes. I think we're going to go ahead and pull all of these cables now and attempt to patch something from scratch. What I like to do is I like to play a little music in the background as I'm pulling these cables so that we don't get super bored in the stream. So I'm going to go ahead and play a live jam from my channel from, I don't know, a year or so ago. This has got to be quite a bit old now because my studio is completely reconfigured now with the acoustic treatment. And this is way, way before that. Hope that's not too loud at home. I'm going to just start pulling all these patch cables. If the volume is weird or screwy, just drop a note in the chat and I will try to fix it. Now is a wonderful time to grab yourself a cup of coffee or something if you plan on hanging around for the patching part of the stream. I normally take quite a bit longer to pull these cables. I think the last patch I took about a half an hour to pull all the cables and get everything sorted. But for the live stream, we just kind of go a bit faster, just trying to be careful along the way. Yes, I am absolutely, trying to turn the volume down here. I am absolutely using the internal VCA on the Platts module. I love that it comes with that, so that I don't necessarily need to use an extra envelope module when I'm using that. I've been working hard to try to develop some new techniques and kind of, my own techniques in the way that I'm going to be using the system. And I've developed a few techniques for sort of auto-magically turning some tracks on and off in time with the groove. And I'm really interested to keep exploring that idea and to share some of those concepts with you in some future videos. But things are definitely getting exciting as I continue learning more and more about how to actually use this system and these tools. I think what we're going to patch today is, I'm in the mood for something funky, maybe like a big funky beat at a medium tempo with some, I don't know, some funky bass and some cool chords. That sounds pretty nice. See if I can sort of get this back to a zero position per se. Start something from scratch here. Still going to be a few minutes before we get any audio out of the system, so still a great time to grab yourself a cup of coffee or a donut if you plan on hanging around. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up Ableton again, maybe. There we go. Okay, let me go ahead and close this then. Fantastic. Well, what I like to do is I like to get a visual on sort of what I'm hearing during these streams. Working on headphones necessarily isn't like my go-to method, so this really helps when working on the headphones. I've got the FabFilter Pro Q3 EQ plugin so that I can see the frequencies that are coming through, including my voice right now, unfortunately. But we've also got the Isotope Tonal Balance Control plugin, and that helps me balance the low frequency content versus the high frequency content so that I'm not pushing like way too much highs or way too much sub, but maybe just don't know it because I'm on the headphones. So we've got these up, and I'm using the Electron Digitact as the main clock for this system at this time. And here's why. I've got it set up so that I've got a reset signal coming into the system from the Digitact, and it only triggers the very first time that I press the play button. And I'm using that to get all of my sequencers in line with each other so that they all know when the downbeat is. I've got a sort of a master like clock reset system that I've been working on putting together in the system itself, but I haven't got all the pieces for that just yet. So we're still using the Digitact as the main clock source and also my main reset signal to get all of the modules and sequencers knowing when the downbeat is. So the first thing we'll do today is I think we'll go ahead and start out with like a slower tempo than what we were just working with. Maybe like 112 beats per minute will be something fun we can start with today. And when the system is empty like this, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to patch in a clock signal and we need to patch in that reset signal so that I can tell any module in the system when to start and stop and when the downbeat is. Let's go ahead and get that set up at this time. I'm going to take our main clock and I'm going to plug that into a multiple. This will allow me to send multiple versions of the clock throughout the case as needed as we're patching. Then we're going to go ahead and take that reset signal that I was talking about, and we're going to plug that one into a different multiple so that I can plug the reset signal into any modules that we need to plug that reset signal in as well. Let's go ahead and start by plugging in a golden shower sequencer from Mazatron, just so that I can get a visual reference on the clock here. Fantastic. Now our sequencer is moving in time with our tempo, and if I press the play button, cool, we've got the reset working on that as well. That's just a point of reference for me so that I can get a little bit of visual representation on what we're doing. I think today Hey Joshua, thanks for tuning in. All right, let's go ahead and start with something melodic today. Let's see if we can't get maybe like a nice chord pad happening from the qubit chord module. Let's do that as the very first thing so that we've got a nice melodic base to kind of build on. Let's see here. I'm going to take the root output of this module and I'm going to run that into my tuner just so that I can make absolutely sure that we're in tune. I'm going to go ahead and write, at least attempt to write in F minor today. For those of you who are familiar with my channel and my content, F minor is my favorite key to write in, and that's what we're going to be writing in today. So I think we'll leave the root note of this module. It's got 5 different outputs. It's got an output for just the root note of the chord, for the third, for the fifth, or for the seventh of the chord. So you can literally take those 4 notes of the chord and output them from the module individually in case you want to get really, really creative or maybe do some thickening or panning on those different notes. But what we're going to be doing today is we're just going to take the main out of the mix, which is going to take the entire chord right out of the mix for us. And I think we're going to start sending that to some reverb right off the jump as well. So let's get that set up. We'll take an output here, route that into the mixer. And you guys should be able to hear that already. Okay. I'm going to route I've got a splitter cable here, and I'm routing one end of this directly into my mixer, and I'm routing the other end through the Desmodus Versio reverb from Noise Engineering. Let me go ahead and get that plugged in to the mixer so that we can hear this reverb on the sound. Throw some cables around while I'm at it. And right now, we're just hearing a really static chord pad. But we're going to get some movement and some sort of maybe rhythmics happening on this as well. So let's see here. Awesome. We've thickened that up with some reverb there. Now, the chords module basically has these waveforms that allow you to scroll through the waveform. I guess it's more of a wave table is what I should have said. A wave table, sort of like how you can scroll through a wave table if you're familiar with the Serum virtual instrument. Listen to the different tones that we get. All I'm doing is just scrolling through this wave table. And there are several different wave tables included in the chords module. I've only had this one for a very short time, a couple of weeks really, so I'm not like super familiar with what everything in it sounds like. Let's check it out a little bit. Ooh, that's cool. Ooh, I'm liking this a lot, and we're definitely going to go with this today. Let me see if I can move the camera in a little bit closer for a second so that I can show you guys something. What I'm noticing on this particular waveform is that as I scroll through the waveform itself, rather, it's adding a high frequency melodic content to the sound. I'm going to stop talking so we're not seeing my voice here, but rather just visualizing what we're hearing. And check this out when I scroll through the waveform. Look at what it does to the high frequency content of the sound. Okay, here we go. Can you see how it literally fills in that high frequency content as I'm scrolling the waveform? And as I scroll it back down, I really like the way that that's sounding, and I think we can do some automation on that waveform to build some movement into that sound. And let's see if we can go ahead and try to do that. So I'm going to want to assign some form of modulation to the waveform. And we have a lot of choices for that. We could use something like an LFO. We could use like a sample and hold from the random step module from DivKit. That might be interesting to get a little bit of baked in rhythmic movement to the sound. I think we're going to focus in on this chord sound for a little bit and really see if we can get it doing something interesting for us as something to build off of today. So what I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and start by sending our main clock signal into the DivKit random step module. Now this is a sample and hold module, and now we've got the module knowing what our tempo is, and it's going to be sampling, let's see how if I can explain this properly. It's going to be sampling an internal pink noise, I believe. I don't think it might be a white noise, but that contains a lot of random, like all of the frequencies, right? Basically, it's just white noise. So every now and again, according to the rhythm of our patch, it grabs a little section of that white noise and it samples and holds whatever frequency it's got at the output. I think I did a pretty lousy job of explaining that, but let's see if you can hear what it does. Come on, I patch this in. Let's see if we can get this doing something cool for the waveform. Absolutely. Do you hear how we're getting some little fluctuations on that now? Ooh, I'm liking that. Let's make it so that we can control the amount of those little fluctuations, shall we? We're going to go ahead and take an output from that sample and hold module, and instead of running it directly into the chords module, I'm going to run it into the quad rat from IntelliGel, which is an attenuator. So it's going to take that full range of movement that we're sending out from the sample and hold module, and it allows me to shape just how much of that signal we're actually sending out to the other module. So all I need to do is plug an output from the quad rat back into the wave modulation input here. And now we're not hearing any of that movement in the sound. But if I turn the knob up on the quad rat, we can control just how much of that movement we want in the patch. And what's cool about this is this will literally allow me to turn that movement on or off as the patch is progressing. Kind of a neat bonus there. I think we'll go with quite a bit of that little whoop movement on it to start with, maybe. And maybe we'll go for, I don't know, maybe like even a slower groove today and turn this tempo down to maybe 104 BPM. Hey, Ed. Hey, Jamie. All right. I'm trying to decide if we want to have a sort of a pad that's static, like a holding pad, or whether we want to try to create some sort of a rhythm for this, which I think might be pretty fun. I think we're going to give that a go. So what we're going to do is try to use, let's see here, an envelope. We're going to use a VCA and an ADSR to assign an envelope to this sound so that we can then control a rhythm of how it's playing back. Check this out. This is going to be fantastic. We're going to see here. Then we'll take the gate out into the CV in, and then we take this to the end. So that's okay. Hold the phone there, Dean. What are you doing wrong? Okay, so we're going to need to take the mix out of there into. Let's do this step by step so that I can figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Take the mix out of here into the in of here. Fantastic. This needs to come out of this rather instead. And then all we need to do now is assign something to the gate. And let's go ahead and use this sequencer that I've already got running. Fantastic. And we'll go ahead and run that right into the gate. And then this is my out. Nope, this is my out. There we go. Okay. So now we've got a rhythmic gate control over this sound so that we can create a rhythmic pattern. And let's do that. I'm using the Golden Shower from Mazatron, and I'm just going to go ahead. It's like a trigger sequencer, an 8-step trigger sequencer. Fantastic sequencer. I'm just dial in that rhythm then. Hold on 1 second while I dial in the rhythm I'm hearing in my head here. Bump, bump, bump. So it's these would be double. At the end, we'd have a pause, and then there, and then one back almost. So let's go ahead and go with that for right now. And what I can do by running this through this envelope we've actually got a really finite control now over the shape of the sound. Ooh, I like the way that sounds. It's kind of starting to sing a little bit and sort of have a life on its own and not sound quite as static as it was originally. At any time, we can still grab the waveform knob and scroll that ourselves too. So we've kind of got control over the tone of this, even though it's got that movement on the waveform. Because the movement is subtle, I can still scroll that knob where we want and still get that movement on the sound. All right. We can soften up the attack as well and make it super mellow if we want. That's even, I don't know, I'm kind of vibing that mellower. We might need to get this a little bit louder. As I start these, I never know, quite how loud I'm getting compared to how loud the last patch was, per se. So I think we're going to want a little bit more volume on this chord by default. Let's go ahead and make that happen. Yeah, that's nice. Is that coming through okay? Can you guys hear that? I think what we're going to do today to create some drums is I think we're going to use some sample modules to start with. I've got 6 now sample modules from Tip Top Audio. These are the 1 sample modules. And what I like about these so much is they're really, really easy to use. You load a little SD card in there with your samples, up to 256 samples, and then you can just scroll through those samples. So we're going to want, I have some extra cards here that I've prepared as well. I think we'll go ahead and swap out a couple of these cards. I got a huge wad of cables here. This is 225 kick drums. I think we'll go ahead and put this card in the first sampler here. And then I've got one with like a ton of snare drums on it. We'll go ahead and put that one in the next one here. And we'll start maybe seeing if we can't get ourselves a drum beat going. What I'm going to do, I think, today is use the Digitact to actually program the drums. I'm running a MIDI out from the Digitact into the Poly-In Poly-2 module. This is how we're getting that clock signal and how we're getting that reset signal into the system. But it also allows me to control up to 8 different trigger signals if I want to, and use those to program drums out. So we're going to go ahead and plug the first trigger signal into the first sample module, and the second trigger signal into the second sample module. Now I just need a way to actually route these sounds into the track, into the mixer itself. So what we're going to do is I like to keep the kick drum per se on its own channel so that I can turn that on and off individually at any time. Let's go ahead and see if we can route that today. Taking out from this, we need a longer cable here. Fantastic. Into the in here. Actually, I want to route this into its own, so let's use a little bit longer cable for this one. Cool. And let's do the same thing for the snare drum so that we can get the snare drum all routed through the DivKit mutes module so that we can turn it on and off as needed. I like to take this extra step so that I can turn the tracks on and off as needed right from the beginning out. I'm going to need a little bit longer one on that one. Okay. So we'll just need to route this mixer. I've got a little mixer here that's going to allow me to put 4 different drum sounds through it, allow me to pan those if I want to individually, and then send all those volumes collectively onto the main mixer. So let's get that routed so that we can hear these sounds. There we go. All right. So now what we'll do is we'll program out a little beat. I'll start scrolling through some sounds, and we'll see what we can come up with. Cool. So I've got the Digitac triggers already set up and routed so that I'm controlling the kick drum here, and I'm controlling the snare drum here. But what let's do is let's create like a rhythm that I can use sort of as a metronome to actually play some drums to today. Let's go ahead and take, why don't we go ahead and take our main clock signal that I've already routed into the multiple in the beginning. Let's go ahead and route this signal all the way over here to a clock divider from Mazatron. Let's get that now going at the same tempo. And we'll also need to send the clock divider the reset signal so that it knows when the downbeat is. So we'll go ahead and patch in the reset signal from the second multiple that I've set up. And once I start and stop the clock, this is now going in time with the other sequencer, and it knows when the downbeat is from that reset signal. And what let's do is, for now, let's just take a divided by 2 clock signal and run that into this noise sound over here that we can use as a little bit of a metronome. There we go. Cool. Now the mix is always a little bit screwy as we get started because I haven't actually selected what drums we're going to use or anything. All we're going to do now is just attempt to play some sort of a beat into the Digitac, and then we'll start scrolling for some sounds that work together and start creating a mix out of those sounds. I hope you guys are saving a little bit of money on Black Friday. I wasn't super lucky. I got sucked into buying a new sequencer for the system. It wasn't on sale, but I got sucked into it anyhow. All right, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and make this a 4-bar pattern instead of a 1-bar pattern inside of the Digitac. 3, 2, 3, 4, 4. Let's play some beat. All right. That'll give us something to actually work with here. And what I can do is maybe just turn the sound down on that snare drum. So we're just hearing kind of this hi-hat here, which I'll bring down a little in volume, I think. And now we can just scroll through some of these kick drum samples and see if anything sort of jumps out and inspires me to work with today. Ooh. Let's see if we can't get that louder in the mix. It's always a little bit different but difficult in the beginning to get my levels all situated. I also forgot to make it so that we can turn the rhythmic chord on and off. So let's go ahead and get that set up real fast. I find that that's really important when oh, come on. When I make these wads of cables, it's always difficult to find the exact cable I need. So please bear with me for a moment as I make a giant mess of these cables so that I can find the actual cable that I would like. Cool, perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this so that we can turn that melodic on and off. See here, that's going to go to the in, and then we just need to route this back to the out, but we're doing that with, it was already here, I think. What did I do with it? We want to... Yeah, it should be... I guess it doesn't matter. Okay. I think I'm just tripping myself up with that. Where was I routing this to, though? I'm getting really confused as to what I... Bear with me real quick here, and I will figure out what I've done wrong. Maybe this actually goes from the out, then. I think that's what I've done. Let's find out. I think so. We're going to start by bringing the volume on that kick drum up just a bit on the mixer. Hang with me, guys. All right, that's going to give us quite a bit more level to work with. Just let me know if that gets a little bit too loud. It's always a little bit, you know, iffy as I'm setting these patches up to find the exact into the out. All I needed to do was turn the switch on. It's always something silly, you know, when you've got like 50 cables in front of you and you're not exactly sure what's going on. And then it turns out it's like one switch. You forgot to, you know, unmute or to mute. So there we go. Fantastic. What we'll do here, so I'm going to go ahead and mix the chord to the volume of that kick drum. I'm going to get a touch more level on my mixer. I hope that sounds okay at home, and we're starting to build a groove that you can actually hear now. Cool. I see from the tonal balance control plugin that the kick drum that I've chosen doesn't actually have a lot of low frequency content in it, which may be a good thing actually, because it will allow us to have that low frequency content cutting through from our bass sound in a moment. But before we worry about any sort of bass or anything, let's go ahead and see if we can't get a snare into the mix, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a Velcro piece here and try to tame some of these cables just a tiny bit so that I can continue seeing the modules here. And we'll bring the volume up on our snare now. Whoa. Go ahead and start scrolling through some snare samples. I kind of like that. I mean, that's fat, right? The tonal balance control kind of likes that too. How does that sound at home? Do you guys like this so far? Should I change that snare drum? Typhon sure does sound good. Let's just get a Typhon cameo, shall we? Ooh. Sorry. It really does sound amazing, though. The effects that are built into the Typhon are actually running in 96 kilohertz. Now, normal CD quality is 44.1 kilohertz. So let's take 44.1 and then let's take 96, right? I mean, they sound amazing. So we've got sort of a noise algorithm here doing the hi-hat. Might be fun if we could maybe add like a ride cymbal to this. Or maybe, in fact, before we do that, let's see if we can just toss in that crash cymbal on the downbeat every 8 bars so that we kind of have a vibe as to when the downbeat is. And it's not just a groove that's sort of wandering aimlessly like a noodle, but starts to have a shape to it and a way that you can expect, that the listener can expect and start understanding how the groove is working and when those changes are coming. Let's get this crash in here. What I'm going to do is just take a divided by 128 clock signal from our master clock, and I'm going to use that to trigger a crash cymbal on the downbeat of every 8 bars. I've got the crash sample loaded into the Squarp Rample sample player, and that's what we're triggering the sample back from today. It's actually scrolling through a few different impact and crash sounds. When you load a sample into the Rample sample player, by default, it will play back randomly. If you have more than one sample in that slot, that is. So this will give us a sense of a downbeat in our groove. We'll wait for the crash. Two, three, four, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8. And here comes the crash. So this locks us into a cycle. And if you were with me last week, I talked a lot about how I use the crash cymbal and how I create this cycle, which helps me with the ebb and flow. I'm not going to bang on endlessly about that this week, but I definitely want to get that point across, that you'll definitely need something in your grooves to help the listener know when the downbeat is coming and when the changes are coming so that they can follow the groove you're putting down. See if we can't get some sort of a bass sound in here. What I like to do is I really like to use that FM algorithm in the Platts module. I wonder if we can use that and get that into this little groove. What I'm going to do is just make sure that we're in tune. So I'm going to take the Platts module and I'm just going to run that into my data from Mordax, which has a tuning function to allow me to see whether we're in tune or not. I'd like to use this for a bass today. So we're going to see if I can't tune this to maybe C1. For those of you who haven't played with real-world modules, sometimes it's very easy to get these modules in tune, and sometimes it's quite a bit of a challenge to get the modules in tune. A lot of the oscillators will have a coarse tuning knob, which does what it says, coarse tuning, really wide tuning adjustments, and what will really be helpful is if you have a fine tuning knob, which lets you really get in there and just dial that frequency right to the pinpoint accuracy you want and tune it like right to a C note or something. But the Platts module, for instance, only has a coarse tune knob. It does not have that fine tune control. So it takes a little bit more finesse and luck sometimes to get it to be as in tune as you'd like it to be. That's one of the reasons why I struggle with the tuning sometimes on these streams, because I really want a fine tuning knob on the Platts module. For instance, the chord module that we set up to be our first melodic piece of content today has a fine tune knob, which allows me to get it right in tune. So getting this to match without that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. Almost, so close. This module would benefit so much from a fine-tuning knob. Okay, I think that's going to be close enough, though, to get us where we need to be. So what we'll do is we'll need a way to actually sequence the melodic content that's coming out of Platts. I think we'll go ahead and use the Memetic Digitalis random CV sequencer for this. What we'll do is we'll need a way to tell the Memetic when the downbeat is and also when the reset signal is, so that it knows when the downbeat is, along with all of our other modules. So the first thing we'll do is just run our master clock into it, and then we'll go ahead and patch in that reset signal from the other multiple that we set up in the beginning. And now, when I stop and start the sequencer, fantastic. Memetic is in time with our groove. So it knows when the downbeat is, and we want to go ahead and take a CV out from that, and we want to run that into an attenuator, because currently it's sending out a really wide range of CV value, maybe like an 8-octave range of CV value. It's completely random. But we're going to take the attenuator, and we're going to bring that range of, voltages down quite a bit. So it's not a huge jumping around set of voltages, but rather something we can actually control. And to control it further and to shape that into, to lock it to a scale, we're going to be using a quad quantizer from Tenderfoot Electronics today. And let's see here. Now, we just need to go ahead and plug this in so that we can hear the module itself. I believe I can do that right here. Absolutely. Bring the volume on that down just a touch. And currently, we're just hearing one note of the bass. Because remember how I said it was that the Memetic Digitalis was spitting out an 8-octave range, but we're running that into an attenuator so we can control the range? Right now, the range is pushed all the way down, so there's 0 range of notes that we can get, and it's just spitting out that one note, which sounds good and everything, but we want it to do more than that. So all I have to do now to get that range of movement is start moving the slider on the attenuator module, and we can adjust the range of notes that are coming through. So if I push it all the way up, we get a lot of those really high frequency contents. Remember I said it was like an 8-octave range? But what you want to do is you want to sort of find a middle ground where the notes that it's generating are, locking in with what you've got already. that sound there at home? I'm kind of liking the way we've got this started. What do you guys think? Hey, Trovarsi, thanks for tuning in. We got Beats by Night. We got 21 people in the chat. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited to share this journey into Eurorack with you. I've been producing and making electronic music and sample packs and sound banks since the 90s. But this is something that I've gotten into just this year alone. So I think this is a really great time to share this part of the journey with you. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is a cool start, I think. All right. Let's go ahead and see if we can get, actually, right, we don't have a way to turn the bass on and off. And remember I said I'd really like to be able to turn all of the tracks on and off? Let's go ahead and make it so that we can do that we can turn this bass on and off, along with all of the other tracks that we can already turn on and off. Whoops, take that as an out. Oops. Got my cables everywhere now. It's a little bit difficult when I pull all the cables, because when I'm looking for a cable of a specific size, and that's not it. Okay, well, we'll go with the longer one then. So now I can turn. Let's see, what is this? The bass and the, yeah, cool deal. So we still have the noise going in the background. Let's make it so that we can turn this on and off as well. I think what we'll do is take a longer one into this one here. Did you guys hear that tail that's happening in the air from the pad there? I really like that. When we get that little bit of bonus texture that just sort of hangs in the air like that. I think that'll get us there. Fantastic. So now I can turn all of the tracks on and off in real time, except for that crash symbol that's just kind of banging away. Let's make it so we can turn that on and off as well. Not that I will really need to during the actual jam, but it's nice in the, you know, in the live stream to be able to turn everything off if I want to chat with you guys. So let's see here. Did I get that right? Let's find out. I think I did. We're listening for, there it is, the crash symbol. Fantastic. So now I can turn that off if I want to. Let's go back to that idea of adding in a ride symbol, shall we? I believe that I've got one that we can access really easily in the ramble and ready to go. Let's find out if that's the case. So I turn this volume up here and we go listen. Absolutely. Good deal. So I'm going to want to be able to turn this ride symbol on and off like everything else. So we're going to go ahead and patch it that way from the beginning so that I can turn it on and off. And let's see here. We're going to turn this gate over here. Cool deal. So now it should come through, right? I just need to get this sequencer going with the main clock. So we'll feed in the main clock to this sequencer. I'm using another golden shower sequencer from Mazatron for this, and we'll need a way to feed the reset signal into that sequencer as well. So now if I stop and start, we've got everything locked into the same beat here. Our new sequencer is going at the same tempo as our original golden shower here. And now I can just dial in a pattern for the ride. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll go dun 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 dun. Let's try that. Dun 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 dun. Cool. This is a neat one. I've got the very first dot on the golden shower sequencer kind of halfway. It's not 100% on and it's not 100% off. So on the downbeat, the ride cymbal sometimes triggers and sometimes doesn't. This is fantastic. If I don't move that knob at all, or breathe too heavy, or get my mojo messed up, that'll stay that way. And let's hope we can get it to do that, because that's awesome. Let's just bring the ride cymbal down in the mix so it's not blasting us quite so much. Just looking at my levels on the mixer here. Can you guys hear the music okay? Are we loud enough? I think I might be not quite loud enough. Let me know if I need to turn the music up at all. All right. Just tucking that ride cymbal a little bit back in the mix. See if we can tune that ride to our groove. Oh, come on. That's better. I definitely want to encourage you that when you're playing with drum sounds, especially something with a lot of frequency content like a ride cymbal, that even if it sounds good, when you drop it into the mix, play around a little bit with the pitch of that sound. And oftentimes you'll find like a magic spot where it literally just kind of seats into the mix. If you play with that tuning of the sounds, especially like a ride cymbal, you might be able to really seed it into the mix, like I think we just did with this one. This sounds a lot nicer. I like that. All right. Yes, we have some room for some low bass indeed. We sure do. We could, I really like the hex mix from Bifaco. The reason that I chose this mixer as my main mixer in this system is that it has a 3-band EQ. I don't have any other EQ modules in this system other than what's built into this mixer. So I was able just now to pull the level of the bass down just a little bit, but turn that low frequency content up on it a little bit better. A little bit better? A little bit more, rather? We still have some room. Is that kick drum cutting through the mix for you guys? I know a lot of you are probably listening on phones and iPads, but can you hear that kick drum? I might turn that up a notch, but it's hard to know when I'm on headphones sometimes with the actual mixes. Tuck that chord back in, all right. Let's go go ahead and create a second bass pattern, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and save our first pattern in the mimetic digitalis here, and I'm going to randomize this. But because I'm running through a quantizer, whatever voltages the mimetic spits out should, in theory, still be in key with the rest of our groove. Let's check it out. Let me randomize this bass pattern. Let's do that again. That sounds cool. We're going to go ahead and save that into the second slot of the mimetic. And now we can switch back and forth between the bass parts. I'm going to put our chord back in and we'll verify that it sounds good with that second bass pattern. I think so. Trying to give our chord just a tiny little bit more reverb. Let's scroll the bass one time. All things said and done, we're doing pretty darn good with the mix balance control according to the iZotope tonal balance control plugin that I'm using here. We're not pushing any extraneous frequencies or not, pushing too highs in the mids or anything. We're looking pretty good so far. All right. I think what let's do is let's see if we can add some double time hi-hats in to sort of, push the groove a little bit, sort of forward to get a little bit of extra forward momentum in the groove. What I'm going to do is literally just take the first output of my clock divider, which is not dividing the signal at all. It's just going to send out 16th notes. We're going to go ahead and route that into the hat module from 2HP. You can see that we're already triggering that on some 16th notes. Fantastic. We'll go ahead and route this module into the mixer so we can hear it. Route that here. Cool. So that's going to give us some basic 16th notes on the hi-hat, except that you may realize that I didn't allow myself a way to turn this on and off. So let's go ahead and do that. So one of the benefits of using a module for the sounds as opposed to using a sample for the sounds is that we've got all sorts of things we can do to modulate the actual sound itself and sculpt that in real time. Put some modulation on it and send some LFOs to move some of the timbres around and whatnot. Whereas we can't really do that with a sample. So I can change whether it's open or closed sounding. And I think what we'll do is I think we'll take an output from our sample and hold module that we already got in time with our groove earlier in the session. I think we'll take an output from that and we'll run it into the open hi-hat trigger so that every now and again, and hopefully randomly, it will trigger an open hi-hat sound as well and get a little bit of extra movement on the hi-hats. Fantastic. Now we're getting some open hats coming in the mix, but they're happening randomly. We don't know exactly when they're going to trigger. I find that using random in this sort of a way where it's a gentle random. We're not randomizing, for instance, our entire drums, so the kick is always changing and the audience is confused. We've got really a static pattern here that's driving home the beat. The kick is solid, the snare is solid, And so when we add a little bit of randomness on top of a really steady groove, that's when things get really interesting, but you can still follow the groove. I think if you add too much random and in too many places, your groove kind of starts to fall apart and becomes harder to listen to. So we'll use the random sparingly. Hey, thanks Beats by Night. Hey Joshua, hey Alpha Rasu. Thanks for sticking around. Hey, we got Sky Tortoise Ferryman in the chat. All right. Thanks for joining up, everyone. Let's go ahead and tuck that chord back in the mix a little bit more. Now, one of the things about the hat module from 2HP is that the high frequency content that it puts out is very, very strong. And I can see here in the tonal balance control that it's actually pushing a little bit more high frequency content than I would like. And I have a wonderful solution for this, and I'm really stoked to be able to share it with you. I'm going to take the quad cutoff module from Mazatron, and I'm going to route this hi-hat into it. And we're not going to adjust the module at all. By default, it's going to shave a tiny, tiny little bit of the high frequency content off of whatever sound you put into it. Now, this module, it's not a really screaming filter. It's a very gentle filter, and that's why I love it so much for something like this. It's actually a 6 decibel per octave low-pass filter with no resonance. So it's very, very gentle the way that you're adjusting the high frequency content. And literally, I found out a few patches ago that all I have to do is run this hi-hat module into the quad cutoff, and it tames that little extra high frequency content that's pushing too hard. Let's do that. Take a longer cable here. We're already back in line. Let me zoom in just a little bit so that I can show you guys just what I'm talking about here. Now, again, this is the Isotope Tonal Balance Control plugin. Just get right about there. I don't know if you can see this, but what I'm trying to do is I'm basically trying to keep this line, this white line, in the middle of their sort of outline here. And if I turn the volume up and I stop talking, you'll see our mix here. So we've got a little bit of room in those low frequencies still. But the high frequencies are in line, and they're not pushing off or out of the area. So that's really a nice adjustment to be able to make on those hi-hats from the 2HP module to shave a little bit of that excess high frequency content off of those and get them, you know, a little bit more into the mix. Something that I could try to do to compensate for that little bit of low frequency content that we're missing is I could adjust the EQ on my mixer, or I could even try to adjust the EQ that's built into the Hex Mix. Another really nice thing about the Hex Mix is it has a very gentle 3-band EQ built in it's like a global EQ. It affects all of the tracks. So if I turn the volume up, I can literally just gently turn the low end up. I don't want to push it too hard, but just a tiny little adjustment can make a big difference sometimes. Are we waxing philosophical about the fugue machine? I did a really neat sequence with the fugue machine last year where I ran all 4 of the heads into different channels in Ableton and to different virtual instruments. Got a really large sort of orchestral wash happening with the fugue machine. That sequencer is awesome. Be able to squeeze in like a clap sound to this. That might be kind of fun. Let's see what I've got. I've got some extra cards here, some extra sample modules rather, with cards full of samples in them. Let's see if we can maybe patch one of these in and see what's on it. There we go. Okay, so I've got a card here with a whole bunch of claps on it. I'm going to go ahead and route this so that we can get a clap into the mix then. What we'll need is we'll need a way to sequence a clap. So we'll use a golden shower sequencer for that. I'm going to go ahead and run a clock signal in there so that it knows what tempo we're working at. And whoops, that's way too long. And we're going to run, maybe. We're going to run, here we go, a reset signal into this as well so that it knows when the downbeat is. It can stay in time. We start and stop the digitact, which sends that reset signal one time and gets all of the sequencers knowing when the downbeat is. If you missed the beginning, that's why we're using the digitact, because I'm able to send out a reset signal to the system that only plays the very first time that I press play on the digitact. And it gets all of the sequencers knowing when that downbeat is. Let's see here. So the sequencer is running in time. I'm gonna go ahead and just put in a pattern that'll trigger a clap for us. And we'll just go ahead and send that out into the module. Whoa, that's loud. I kind of like the way that clap sounds, but you know, for the fun of it, let's go ahead and scroll around in this bank of sounds. I kind of like that one because it adds like a nice crunch in the high and mids that the other ones weren't giving us. Let's use that one. Need a way to turn this on and off. Cool. So now, oh, I see. We can turn everything off, but then there's that open hi-hat that's still triggering randomly. Who knows when? We've got that set to trigger, and I can turn that crash off. We've got that hi-hat set to trigger from a random sample and hold module. But it might be nice if we could turn that off as well. And we can do that. We'll go ahead and take it in from this. Triggering from here. You guys hear that the hi-hat sound is gone? Just running that into a little switch here. And I can turn that on and off now as well. I think that's really important to have these switches to be able to turn the tracks on and off in real time. If you want to do any sort of, performing with your track at all. We can just turn everything back on here. We can just find the downbeat when the crash cymbal hits. back on the grid. 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Tony. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. And I hope you're not spending too much money on all the Black Friday sales. Let's go ahead and try to create a third bass pattern. I'll just randomize this. Here we go. Randomize that again. Much better. Much better. I'm going to save this into our third slot. And let's randomize this one more time. Try to create a fourth bass pattern. 2, 3, here we go. Ooh. I really like that little accent. So we'll go save into slot 4. 1, 2, 3, 5, and 4. Dibby dibby don't set. 2. I'm off grid. 2. Bring that ride cymbal down a touch, shall we? Interesting abstract group today. I kind of like the way this is going. If I was working this in a DAW or something, I might try to get more melodic content happening. Got ourselves a pretty cool drum beat when you take away the melodic content. And I think that's kind of an important thing, that if you remove your melodics, that the drums kind of can stand up on their own. If I was really working on this patch, I might take the time to get in here and just really fine tune these drums to get them to hit as hard as possible. Again, I'm using the FM algorithm in the Platts module for this bass sound. This is definitely, I think, my first go-to sort of sound where I'm really liking this algorithm for bass and being able to use it this way. Because you can take the timbre knob and get those accents, and then turn the timbre knob all the way back down again. Let's go ahead and see if we can assign some modulation to move that knob a little bit for us in the groove so that we don't have to worry about moving it ourselves, and we can get maybe a little bit of extra bonus rhythmics happening in that. It's like I'm stuck on a cable there. I'll grab another one. Cool. What let's do is let's take another sample and hold out from the DivKit random step module that we have going in time with our groove here. And I'm going to go ahead and route this into that timbre input. It's actually enabled us to create kind of a more mellow sound. Not really what I was expecting, but I'm really liking what that's doing for the bass. I think we have even more separation between the tracks with that extra kind of, I don't know, it's sort of beefing up the low end of the bass. I really wasn't expecting that. I don't know if you guys can hear that. If you're on a phone or an iPad, you're probably not hearing that bass. But if you're on headphones or proper monitor speakers, boy, that bass is low. I like that. One of the neat features of the DivKit mutes modules is that if you press to the left, it's a temporary unmuting of the track, and the switch will just spring back to its muted position. So you can sort of get these interesting little accents on the tracks that you've got running through there. 2, 3, and if you just push for a little bit and then let go and it snaps back to that mute. If I bring our sort of filter cut off on that chord up, you'll hear what I mean a little more. And then we can sort of hear that reverb trail that's sort of coming after. So you can just sort of turn that on and off in a limited capacity to create other sections rather than turning it all the way on. And 2, 2, 3, 4. I'm still off the grid. That's what that crash is for. 2, 3, 4. All right. I think this came out pretty good. I'm not really sure exactly what else I would add to this today. It's just sort of an abstract, kind of a down-tempo, chill-out groove. Maybe before we call it today, I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions that anyone may have, whether they're modular related or iPad related or anything music production related. And maybe while we're sort of winding it up, maybe we'll just crank the tempo on this a little bit and see what happens. I appreciate you guys tuning in and sticking with me today. Here's 118 beats per minute. Maybe take some of that reverb off of our main chord with a faster tempo like this, so it's not quite so muddy. Maybe we adjust the amount of movement that we're sending to that chord as well. Hey, I'm on the grid. I love it. All right. Now, the rhythm of our chord progression here is being created with the golden shower sequencer. So at any time I can change that rhythm up as well. We can just experiment with something else if I just randomly. Maybe bring the reverb up on it now that it's not happening so much. Let's scroll it again in 1 and 2 and change that melodic. Maybe we could adjust the envelope on that melodic sound. Just check if anyone's got any questions here. The track in the beginning of this was just a techno patch that I put together yesterday so that I would have something to start the stream with. I did one live stream where I didn't have anything in the system when I started, and it was difficult to know actually what level to set the audio at between the systems. So the audio of that stream was a little bizarre. And I find that when I've got a really loud patch kind of in the system, it gives me a way to set the level that we're going to be, the audio level rather, that we're going to be working with. And so the bass from that was the same bass that we're using now, actually. It's the Platts module from Mutable Instruments, and I'm using the FM algorithm. I'm pretty new to Eurorack still, and this is actually one of the first sort of things that is kind of becoming a go-to for me, using the Platts module for bass in its FM algorithm. I'm pretty sure that we have this module available in the iPad Eurorack environment MyRack as well. So if you're playing around in MyRack, I'm pretty sure you can play around with a version of the Platts module in there. And I'm really finding it fun for bass, especially because you can mess with the amount of, FM signal, and you can get those fun accents to do in real time. That crash pretty loud in the mix there. Thanks for tuning in, Wall. Yeah, at the beginning, I want to say we were going pretty quickly, actually. Maybe about 136 or 138, if I'm not mistaken. But I might be. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 138. But this was kind of a fun little groove that we created today. Oftentimes when I'm starting with a 4 on the floor groove, I like to program something with a broken beat vibe, or if we're starting with a broken beat vibe for the first 15-20 minutes, then I like to go into a 4 on the floor groove to program or something. Unless anyone has any other questions, I think we're going to go ahead and call it for today. Kind of a neat little groove we made. Yeah, I need to try some more FM patching on analog VCOs as well. There's so many things that I want to try with this and just never enough hours in the day. That's one of the reasons why I decided to do these weekly Patch Lab live streams so that not only can I share the journey with you, but it also sort of guarantees me a little bit more time each week that I know that I'm going to be spending with the gear. Because with all the other videos that I'm trying to make and the schedules that I'm trying to keep, it's not always easy to just put your hands on what you want to put your hands on at that time, if you get my drift. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and call it. And I really appreciate everyone sticking with me till the end today. We got 23 people still in the chat. All right. I just want to say again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you had a wonderful day, and I hope you didn't spend too much on all these amazing Black Friday deals. We're a little bit moving forward still in me getting the really large case where everything will fit, and hopefully we'll be able to get some different camera situations at that time as well. I'm really trying to up my tech knowledge here so that maybe I can start streaming, maybe using OBS and two cameras so we can switch back and forth between like maybe a closer shot on the gear and you guys can see that a little better. So hopefully that's on the horizon as well. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. Yes, actually, as a matter of fact, Beats by Night, I do have another video coming out with Travarsi really soon. We're doing a video on the Digitact where we're sharing some loop tips. I'm sharing some methods that I use to turn a 4-bar loop into a longer loop, and Travarsi's going to share some methods for recording loops from your Digitact into the computer. So it's going to be sort of like a dueling Digitact tips extravaganza, and that should be out probably this week or next week. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And maybe some more live streams with Travarsi in the future as well, because we had a lot of fun on the live stream last weekend with Patchnode. All right. Yeah. Cool, you guys. I really appreciate everyone joining up. I know there's a lot of technical stuff that we try to get through in these live streams, and I really appreciate you sticking with me. All right. Until next time. Thanks a lot.